William Lawrence. He is a professor of political science and international affairs at American University. Prof, always good to speak to you on this news hour. So now, with this new indictment, how is it going to affect Donald Trump's election campaign ahead of November 5th?
It all depends on fact-finding. So what Jack Smith did is, instead of waiting until the judge went about interpreting this astonishing Supreme Court ruling, basically saying, anything presidents do is immune from prosecution, which is just unheard of and not really constitutional, but they are the Supreme Court. They left it to the judge, right, and the prosecutor to figure out what was prosecutable. So that they could have waited until the judge held hearings to make determinations. But instead, what Jack Smith did is he kept the same charges, tightened up the case, sliced out anything that looked like an official act. He even called the vice president, he gave him a different title because he wasn't acting as vice president while he was certifying the vote, which is a ministerial task rather than a vice presidential task on behalf of the White House. And then he basically said, okay, this case has nothing to do with Trump as a president. Now do your fact finding. And so he threw the gauntlet down to the judge, and the judge may have to do fact finding before the election. And if there's fact finding, then that can be injected into the political campaign. So that's the political side of this. On the legal side of this, of course, this could take years, not even necessarily 1 year, but years, because the Supreme Court deliberately muddied the waters to make it really complicated to figure out what's prosecutable and what isn't, and leaving themselves the final arbiter of what could be prosecuted or not. So hearing after hearing, decision after decision rising to the Supreme Court so that sort of they could keep their finger on the scales. But this shows that there's, some judicial independence here, and they're pushing back against this very conservative Supreme Court.
Will Kamala Harris now use this as part of her campaigning, or may it be seen as possibly overkill for some of those undecided, more moderate voters?
Well, as you've surely been covering, the Democrats have been agonizing over their messaging. And one of the, problems they found is if you tell the U.S. public Trump's a liar, they roll their eyes, both the people for him and against him. And if you tell them he's a criminal, they roll their eyes too. What they really are responding to, according to all the research and strategic discussions that are going on, is they respond when you talk about how selfish and insensitive he is. And so it'll be wrapped into that. There is a smaller set of politically active Americans who want to hear about the court cases and want to hear about the misconduct in terms of legal misconduct of Trump. But the larger public, worried about economics, worried about their own situations in life, are going to be much more responsive when she talks about how insensitive, how selfish Trump is. So she'll be talking less about this and more about those other things.
Very interesting to see how this plays out. Professor William Lawrence in Washington, D.C. Always great to get your opinion. Thank you very much.